Sussan Ley, thank you for joining the Daily Aus.
It's a pleasure.
We're talking today because on Sunday, the Coalition announced that it would abandon Australia's net zero by 2050 target. For anyone who missed this announcement, do you want to just take us through it first?
Thank you, Billi. And I said when you and I caught up last time, soon after I became leader, that I wanted to meet with young Australians wherever they are and listen to them, and I have, and I've made a decision and I appreciate the opportunity to explain it. Our plan that I'm talking about today is about affordable energy and responsible emissions reduction. And I know that a lot of young people are really struggling with the cost of living right now, and that's one of the reasons we've made affordability of energy central to the plan. But emissions reduction is still important, and when you talk about net zero, you mean a long-term target that the government has signed up to. Unfortunately, they're not going to meet that target, and the costs that they've incurred so far haven't really brought emissions down either.
So you're saying that you have gone away, you've listened to young people, and as a result of that, you have decided to abandon net zero?
Not quite in the terms that you've just presented. What I've done is listen to young people, and they've told me they care about the climate, and I care about the climate.
But isn't this decision abandoning net zero bad for the climate?
It's a target that, unfortunately, the government is not going to reach. And already, if you look at where they've come from and where they're going, their emissions from Australia are flatlining. But most importantly, energy prices are going up. And remember, they told you that renewables were the cheapest form of power and your energy bills would come down. And they've gone up 40%. So because energy is unaffordable, everything is unaffordable. So we have to get the cost of energy affordable, but we do need to play our part in reducing emissions, which is why I've said that a coalition government would stay signed up to the Paris Agreement.
Okay, so you're saying we need to abandon climate targets to bring down the cost of energy bills. But experts have said that there are a mix of reasons for higher energy bills. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is an example of one of those reasons. So what is the evidence that higher energy prices are caused by renewable energy?
The government told you that your energy bills would go down because of renewable energy, and your energy bills have gone up by 40%. This is all after the Ukraine war. Any effects from that have washed out.
But that war is still ongoing, so we are still seeing the effects of that.
Yes, but the effects that Australia is seeing are from the renewable energy build and the government's energy policy. So the government has said we're building 82% of the grid to be renewable by 2030. They're woefully off track with that. That actually is not going to happen. The government privately, I think, would admit this too. They're failing to do what they said they would do, which is to keep prices down.
I want to move on. Just quickly, I've heard you say before that you do believe in the science behind climate change, yes?
Absolutely.
You were standing next to Nationals leader David Littleproud on Sunday as he explicitly said that this decision is not based on science. Is that right?
I don't believe that's what he said. He said that the economics is what we need to focus on to bring prices down.
He said this debate is not about science.
He's certainly not walking away from the science of climate change. There may have been a misunderstanding there because I've heard him on other occasions, and we're very clear that we accept the science of climate change, which is why we're staying with the Paris Agreement, because that's what the Paris Agreement is about.
Let's look at the Paris Agreement. You say that you will remain committed to it. But to reach the goals set out in that agreement, countries need to achieve net zero by 2050. So if you're serious about ditching net zero, why not leave the Paris Agreement as well?
I'm going to disagree with you about the net zero by 2050 being in the Paris Agreement. What the Paris Agreement says is that countries must submit their nationally determined contributions, and they can resubmit them, or as some have, change the baseline accounting to make them look a bit different.
It's more specific than that though, because so it has the target of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees. And in order to scientifically achieve that, net zero is required.
So, Billi, if it is the only way to achieve that target, how much can Australia achieve if we're only 1% of those global emissions?
But are you saying if we can't 100% get there, then we shouldn't even try?
I'm saying that we should responsibly play our part in the ways that I've said, which is bringing down our own emissions, because that's what we should do. Look, I know there's lots of disagreement about what it means, but let's take a step back. Does anyone in Australia really think that we would let an international agreement determine a policy that would crash Australia's businesses, that would make our young people inherit a lower standard of living that would even then not make a appreciable difference to the world's climate. I appreciate that Labor's put this target on the table and they've talked a big game, but when you look at where they are now and where they are expecting to land, it's almost impossible.
Let's get back to the specifics of the Paris Agreement. It is specific in saying that countries' targets can't go backwards. Under this policy that you've proposed, Australia's targets would go backwards. So is the coalition strategy to remain part of the Paris Agreement, but then actively breach it?
Well, we'll sit at the table in the forum that is the Paris Agreement, and we'll talk about what our nationally determined contributions will be in our national interest when that time comes. So what other countries are doing right now, because many of them have realised it's not possible to reach targets that they set, is they're changing their baseline accounting, so they're watering it down, or they're taking certain things out and saying, we're still there, but we're not counting this, this and this. So plenty of countries are changing what they're prepared to do in this agreement. But they're
not going backwards on the targets.
They are. Who? Because, countries that are saying our nationally determined contributions are now going to be calculated in a different way.
But who's going backwards on their targets?
Well, several countries are doing things differently because of this. And
but
I'll
no
get you a
country
list.
has gone backwards. Okay, I look forward to the list.
It depends what you mean by going backwards. But I really think,
we would be going backwards.
The Labor Party has given a target, so they've given 43% by 2030, and they've said in 2035 it'll be 62 to 70%. There is no way that can be reached. So they're going to have to go backwards if they're still in power, because there's no way they can reach that. There's no way that number will work at all. But it's not just about a target and an international agreement, important though international agreements are. It's about what's in the best interest for our country.
Okay, so we've established what you're not doing. Let's look at what you would do. Can you say in really clear terms, how would a future coalition government bring energy prices down?
By getting more supply into the system. I talked about a balanced energy grid. At the moment, the grid is out of balance. There are too many renewables in it. Renewables are good, but by the time you firm them with dispatchable, reliable baseload power, and by the time you build the transmission systems, by the time you put all that in there, it's incredibly expensive. And the delays in that equipment coming to Australia is a year to 3 years behind. So that's pushing up prices. So what we're saying is, yes, renewables in the right place, but let's bring gas into the system.
But you're confident that you could increase supply of gas and at the same time bring down emissions?
Well, we've got probably the second or third largest resource of gas in the world. We're the second or third biggest exporter of LNG. Now, as I said, LNG is an important It has far less emissions than coal, but
it's still emissions.
And our LNG is high quality. Emissions are, you can't have emissions-free power at this point in time. So what you have to do is work out how you reduce your power.
Renewables.
No, but that's the whole point. Renewables cannot operate without baseload power to what we call firm the grid. So in Spain and Portugal, not that long ago, they tried to run the whole Iberian Peninsula off renewables. They said that they were going to be able to do it. It was, if you like, an experiment. It didn't work. One part of the grid got out of frequency and there was a cascading series of shutdowns. The whole peninsula went dark. 11 people lost their lives. And
the Spanish government said that wasn't because of renewables.
It was because renewables were unable, the generation of electricity was too renewable to keep the grid stable.
But the official report on that said there is no evidence that was because of renewables.
The honest answer to this is that's what happened. But back to the LNG. Well, maybe not. Back to the fact that you do need to have baseload and dispatchable power. And that helps renewables, and it's a good thing. Now, the only way you can get zero emissions is to have nuclear.
So the coalition still supports nuclear energy as part of this policy?
We are completely technology agnostic, and that includes nuclear. And when I talk to a lot of young people, and I know there's quite a movement of young people in Europe to be very pro-nuclear, because it's zero emissions and it's baseload power and it's reliable. And once
it takes at least 15 years to build?
Well, look, there's different technologies being built all the time and being explored. And I know some of those are micronuclear reactors, which are very small. And I know that overseas in the US, they're considering how they might be applied to data centers and AI. Now, the technology's not there.
I was going to say, are you just
explored.
banking a policy on technology that you don't know will exist ever?
Well, we have to be technology agnostic. So whatever's there, whatever the market can provide to back in our affordable power plan.
So we'll wait and see on the technology.
Whatever the market can provide at the time. And how do we know what it can provide in 10, 15, 20 years' time? Whatever it can provide should be part of our plan. But I would encourage you to do some more research on zero.
I've done some research.
No, I'm not suggesting you have it on zero emissions nuclear, because a lot of people don't think about it.
I've also done some research on that.
Because a lot of young people are talking to me about nuclear, and people my generation obviously have the memory of military grade nuclear, and some of them that's not a good memory, and I understand that. But your generation is, well, this is interesting. It has no emissions, and if we want to look after the planet, and we do, we should definitely consider it.
Just lastly, I want to turn to the speculation around your leadership. Your colleague Sarah Henderson recently said, "I can't pretend things are good. I do think Sussan is losing support." What's your response to that?
I'm not going to comment on the commentary of colleagues or others who tend to then comment on that commentary, except to say that we as a team signed off on this affordable plan. And you know what? While I get these questions and obviously understand why people have to ask them, I am not going to lose focus for a single second on what is really important to me,
but I think
which is how we develop and deliver an affordable and reliable energy system for Australians.
I understand that you're focused on it, and I believe that you're focused on that policy. But the thing is that your colleagues don't seem to be focused on it, because every single day in the media there is speculation that your colleagues don't want you to be the leader anymore. So how do you respond to that?
I just don't comment on commentary. And, there's all sorts of things in the media about who said what to whom. I pay no attention to it because I genuinely am focused on this. And one of the reasons I am, because I remember how as a young mum, I had 3 children, I was piling them into the car. One of the things that really worried me was my energy bills, because they were pretty steep for, if you're managing on a small budget. And when you don't know how you're going to meet your expenses week to week is something that, sure, it was many years ago for me, but I've never forgotten. Young people are facing increased cost of living, which is why your report
this is a world-class pivot. It's not quite the question.
Has 59%. Look at that graph.
That's a great graph. I have one more question on the speculation on your leadership.
I just want to read it out. When young Australians say, I love it, they trust themselves over the system. I don't love that. That worries me. This is what they mean. They're earning more than their parents did at the same time, yet they're feeling less secure, working harder, falling further behind on the milestones that defined Australian success. 59% less cost of living is their single biggest concern, more than all the other issues combined.
No, I don't dispute that that's there, and that young people are concerned about cost of living.
And to be a responsible leader in this country, we've got to address that.
Have you spoken to your colleagues like Andrew Hastie who potentially want your job?
That's your observation. And as I said, I don't comment on commentary.
He's been quite clear about it.
But I talked to all of my colleagues. We were all involved in developing the plan. We were all involved in having our say. And now we really want to talk to Australians about how they're being let down by this government.
You're confident you'll be the leader of the opposition at the next election?
Yes, I am.
Sussan Ley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.